I'll be moderating this panel, so my name is Kaylee, and I'm the technical director of Apple Juice Productions, and I've also done cinematography on our projects, and my current favorite ship is Quentin and Elliot from The Magicians. So we'll go have everybody introduce themselves down the line and also share your current favorite ship.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a writer and an actress, and right now I'm watching The X-Files for the first time, so I'm pretty obsessed with Dana Scully and Fox Mulder, and they are actually the first known couple that was ever referenced by the word ship. So in 1996 or something on the dark old internet, someone referred to them in that capacity, like that they shipped it, and that's kind of where that all started.
I'm Mary Blanchard. I studied communications, used to work at KUTV. I'm a managing editor for Vanquish the Foe, which is a sports blog, and I created and started my own female German BYU sports blog. That's what we'll call it. My current favorite ship is Archie, which is Betty and Archie from Riverdale, for better or for worse.
Hi, my name is Cee Brown. I'm an associate of Apple Juice Productions, and I've done a lot of different things with them on the crew and behind the scenes with that. So it's just been a lot of fun doing that. And my current favorite ship is, despite Season 8's best intentions, is Jaime and Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones.
I'm Cassandra Taylor. I've done mostly camera work with Apple Juice Productions, and that's what I do at my job currently. Lots of camera stuff and editing. My current favorite ship, so many, but I'm not going to say a current one, but I'm still there for Ryan and Marissa, even though, she's not.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, thanks everyone. So just to get into a little bit, let's go ahead and talk about the first couple that you shipped and why. Like, how old were you? And then did it inspire you to begin shipping others as well? Go down the shipping path? Who wants to start?
After that.
Cee Brown, why don't you go?
So my first one that I shipped was Percabeth from the Percy Jackson series. Love him so much, thank you. That was really the first series ever that I really got involved with, either really heavily invested in fandom. The first series I was probably Harry Potter, but I was a little young to be invested in it. So that was the first time I got really into the characters and the fandom, and I was online and everything like that with everything. So yeah, that was a big one for me, I would say, Percabeth. Yep.
Mary?
Ron and Hermione for me. I don't know how much needs to be said about that. So they for sure got me into shipping in general. Luke and Lorelai are also a really early one for me. But I would say what immersed me into shipping culture in 2014, this is kind of obscure and embarrassing, but Riley and Lucas in Girl Meets World. Oh my God. So, but that's when I got on Tumblr, and once I was on Tumblr, it was just, I was there in shipping culture.
Cassandra?
I think I'd have to say Boy Meets World's probably my first, Panga and Corey. You always knew they were going to be together because they were so cute. And I loved Corey so much. He was my fave.
Says that in past tense, it's current.
Oh yeah, that's true.
My first ship that I really remember was Han and Leia, and I was probably 6 and just really felt that tension. And then after that, I think most of what I watched and read and listened to and participated in any way was based on shipping and how much I wanted certain characters to be together. So you can say that they made or broke me, whichever way you want to look at it, I guess.
That's great. I was thinking about this because I had a hard time remembering what my favorite ship was, but my favorite Disney movie is Mulan, and I think I really shipped Mulan and Captain Shang from an early age. I was with the grandma there, yes, get them together.
Would you like to wait forever?
The grandma was the original shipper. The first fandom.
So what do you guys think makes a good ship? If you have examples of some of your favorites, share those. Why do you think they work for you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm open to most tropes. If chemistry is there, I think no argument is going to be made. But the two that I seem to gravitate toward are the ones where they are enemies turned lovers, like Captain Swan from Once Upon a Time, or Jilly James and Lily from Harry Potter, or like Dan and Blair from Gossip Girl, just anything where it starts with a lot of like bickering and then it turns into like, oh, turns out we like each other. I'm all about that. And the other one that I always go for is like the slow burn where one person has been pining for the other one for a really long time and then it like finally all culminates. Seth and Summer from the OC, or Ariel and Eric from The Little Mermaid, or Peter and Mary Jane from Spider-Man. Those are just really satisfying, and I feel like that's kind of what you're always hoping for when you have a crush on someone, is like, eventually this will all work out.
Mary?
For me, as far as tropes go, I really like best friends to lovers, obviously. So Betty and Archie is like my thing, and I like the pining and the slow burn element too. But for a good ship, for me, it really comes down to chemistry, and a lot of the time, it's like less about the writing and not even about the plot, and more about the actors' chemistry together. So like for me, my prime example for Betty and Archie would be the porch scene. Do we have Riverdale watchers? So in the pilot, I was gone from that moment. And, she asks, "Don't you love me?" And he steps towards her and says, "Of course I love you," and I'm gone. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's kind of what I thought for myself as well. It totally depends on the actors too. I mean, because one of my all-time favorite ships is Harry and Ginny, but I don't ship them in the movies.
It doesn't come out as well.
I ship the book characters. I love their personalities, and I love like Ginny's journey, and I think it's so cute when they come back together that Harry is then the one pining for her. I'm like, yeah, go for it. So I think acting makes a big difference. But Cyril, you want to share your?
Yeah, I am a big fan of kind of like secret lovers tropes where it's like a little bit forbidden, and they kind of have to like go behind scenes and stuff like that. I just think that's so fun, And then when it finally does come to light, there's just so much I don't know, I just think it's so cute and things like that. It also fits in a lot of like queer ships with that, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, those are just kind of things that I really gravitate towards, I think.
So do we.
Support that.
Nice. I also like the tropes where they start out hating each other, like Logan and Veronica on Veronica Mars. They were like so pitted against each other, and then I think that's where the love grew, and it was like, oh, wow, they're very cute. Also, when they start out really good friends, like she said, I just started watching Scrubs for the first time, and I'm in about season 5, so don't spoil anything for me, but JD and Elliot are really cute, and I'm like still rooting for them, like Ross and Rachel, come on. But you never know. And also, I have to bring up Steve and Nancy. They should have been together.
Season 4, give it to us.
Season 4, come on.
We deserve it.
Yes.
Do you think that ships make you more invested in a fandom? Do you guys would you keep watching if one of your favorite ships stopped, or do you have an example of something, or where you kept watching because you wanted to see people together?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Game of Thrones actually. So Jaime and Brienne, awesome. Their arc all throughout season 3 is the best thing in the show. So much fun, and they're just have such a great dynamic with each other. But then so season 8 comes and they're just we decided we don't like this relationship anymore, and the rest of season 8 they just decided they didn't like it anymore, but that's a different point. And so that was a time when it's once they really just put the hammer down on that and said we're not going to do this anymore in the series, it really made me lose a lot of investment. There was a lot going on in that, but specifically when they decided to not make that canon anymore and just really draw and make that not a relationship that they're going to invest time in, that really made me not interested in the series anymore after that moment. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy for me to lose interest if stuff isn't kind of going my way. I'm charming. But specifically in Star Wars, just as a kind of a general thing, I already mentioned Han and Leia, which I would have considered canon, and then they brought back The Force Awakens, and they were surprise. But in Rogue One, they never had a kiss, which was very much building to that, and I was like, where's my romance? So it's hard for me to get super invested and care about the characters sometimes if there's not that love element. And on the other side of that, I watched every single episode of Shadowhunters, which is a terrible show, which Mary liked, because I love Simon and Isabel in the books so much, and it doesn't happen for them in the movie because they didn't take enough time, but it like very slowly built up in the show, and I was like, okay, I hate this, but I'm gonna watch it because I want to see these two people kiss. That's like why I just.
And you did.
And I did, and I got what I wanted, and it was really mediocre.
That's how I was with the 100. I have watched a lot of seasons of that show, and it's not very good, but I really want to see Bellamy and Clark get together, and I don't think they have yet. And if they have, tell me because I need to watch it. But I like when they get together, I will like go back and see them to the end. But like they just like drew that out for so long that I was like, I can't anymore. Like this is the only reason I'm here. It's not good enough anymore.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I feel like with Riverdale, I have almost reached my limit several times because if you watch, Betty and Archie are like not a thing, and sometimes they'll like give you little breadcrumbs that keep me hanging on, but they're not a canon thing. But I can't quit Riverdale for some reason because that ship has me so invested in the show. But my prime example for losing interest in a show based on shipping, Vampire Diaries. Anyone? Yes! So tell me you ship Stelena.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Stefan and Elena, obviously, I really liked the trajectory that show was on. Loved Stefan and Elena, and then I feel like they kind of jumped the shark with Elena. I don't want to spoil anything. Becoming a vampire. Anyway, that show got really bad, and I know a lot of people that ship Elena and Damon who stopped watching just because the show got so bad, but I literally stopped watching just because they weren't giving me Stefan and Elena. So.
Well, and what was that weird scene? Like, oh, actually, she met him first, so now she's gonna like him.
Listen, I like Damon.
Oh, of course we do. We ship everything opposite. But I will say, when the writing is really, really good, like The Good Place, for instance, I like Eleanor and Chidi, but I would watch that show no matter who they put together because the show is just so brilliant. And same about Jane the Virgin. I ship Michael and Jane, but I never would have quit that show because the writing is just exquisite.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Especially.
I was gonna say, ship definitely motivates me to keep watching. That's kind of the reason I kept watching Pirates of the Caribbean, because I was like, Will and Elizabeth! And then the new one, when they brought her back, surprisingly, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
I more of these now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, more, please. Keira Knightley, please, just, yes. What else? Danny and Mindy on the Mindy Project. That was a real big bummer. Like, it was so exciting when they finally got together, and then they turned him into like a crazy person. That was unfortunate. So I'd have to say sometimes I'm not motivated by ships because they've betrayed me. Like how long? Like 10 years worth of Ross and Rachel, really? 10 years?
Yeah.
Then they go on and kill Marissa on the OC. I'm like, what? Why? But another good one I thought of was Fast and the Furious. Paul Walker and Jordana Brewster. There's just such great chemistry, so I love that.
That's great. We mentioned a couple of couples that we have some ship wars going on, so I wanted to get into it a little bit and just hear your opinions on ship wars. Like, what do you think? There's certain, like, we've heard Barchi versus Bughead. And then Mary, you also mentioned like Michael and Raphael.
Yeah.
There's others, but Mary, why don't, or Amanda?
Either way, yeah, Mary and I, we fundamentally disagree on nearly every couple ever. So it's it's fun for us to watch the same things and be like, let me guess, you hate this and you want these two people to be together.
I know,
and I think a lot of it does come down to actor chemistry and just reading it. And of course, you're gonna bring your own perspective into that situation and your own relationships that you've had and that sort of thing. So I'm gonna bring up Twilight, because I will always bring up Twilight. So when I was reading the books, I was like, Team Edward all the way. How is this a question? And then they cast the movies, and Taylor Lautner was so hot, like ridiculous, to the point where there was a countdown clock on the internet, when will he become 18 so we can honestly feel this way about him. He was really charismatic, and they had much better chemistry. And so in the movies, I was like, maybe I don't ship them. Maybe I like Jacob, and it was really conflicting. But I think that's the fault of kind of a mediocre story being told by actors who were okay, and just the chemistry getting swirled around in the wrong way. And I think that's really I think that's uncommon. I think generally I mean, you mentioned Harry and Ginny as well, so that's another instance where that has happened. But generally, I think if it's a way in the book, it's going to be a way in the TV show, in the movie, etc. But it really like changed my whole perspective, and I was like, I don't know where I stand on this. And I had a Team Edward shirt even, and I was like, can I wear this? So it became very it was really like a thing in 2010 or whatever. I don't know if you guys remember how big of a deal that was. But I do think that the actors can really create something new. I was also thinking about Arrow. They were initially like the character of Felicity Smoke was just going to be like a one and done, like she's your secretary lady that you see one time. And then they were like, oh, you guys have amazing chemistry and you get along really well. So she became like the main character, which Mary
I hate Felicity, just obviously. So.
but you just like, you kind of never know where things are going to go when you have two individuals who are actors, but yes, also bringing their own perspective, their own chemistry, etc., to the role. So I think it's kind of it's hard, I think, when you're adapting stuff, especially.
Well, and to add to that, I think everyone is looking for something different from a ship. I wasn't looking for Oliver and Felicity at all. I don't need that in my life. But with Bughead, that gives some people what they're looking for. They like that trope. And I was also thinking of like Harvey and Sabrina and Nick and Sabrina and just Rory and Logan and Rory and Jess. Like, it just depends on, what you're looking for personally. So it does come down to what the actors are giving you, but I also think it comes down to where you are in your life and what you want to see portrayed.
Sorry.
One of the things I think is most important is like kind of respecting the path the show takes, because do we have any Steven Universe fans out here in the audience? Y'all are nuts, first off. So if anyone doesn't know, there was an incident with one of the storyboarders. They leaked one of the images for the storyboards. This was a while ago, where it showed one of the specific ships. And some of the fans really didn't like that it was pushing one of the ships, and they harassed the storyboarder for this so much on Twitter that she ended up actually deleting her Twitter. Yeah, and so one of the things I think that's important about Ship Wars is that it's like it can be fun in games and you can have like your own differences of opinion, but it's important to recognize that like, first off, like there are people behind these shows. We have to respect that this is an artistic thing that happens, and also like this is just it is just a show at the end of the day. We need to respect that as well. That everyone has a difference in opinion on that. So
did you not get aggressive with Game of Thrones then?
No. I didn't harass anyone off Twitter, if that's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's what I was and to go back to the Jacob and Edward, I was thinking about Hunger Games, and that movie came out, it was like, well, Liam Hemsworth is going to have chemistry with anyone. He's amazing. But I was so like Peeta and Katniss in the books, and I was like, why are they doing this to me? Like, at the end, and then they were like, oh, she ended up with him anyway.
So you shipped Katniss and Gale in the movies?
You didn't?
No, I shipped Everlark forever. I don't care who portrays them. I think their chemistry was good. Josh Hutcherson.
I mean, they were
Jennifer Lawrence.
I think they kind of pushed him more though in the films rather than the book.
Girl, she had a lot to compete with.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that's like, you just said, why are they doing this to me? And I think that's how shipping always feels. You're like, but my personal feelings.
Do they not care?
Totally does. I also really like what you said, Mary, about like shipping is something, well, like it gets personal and there are different ships for different people. Like I used to really ship Luke and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls.
Used to? Everyone's betraying me right now.
I'm so sorry Amanda got to me. I've been rewatching and I've been a little bit like, oh, but when I was watching Gilmore Girls for the first time, I like had a crush on my best friend, guy friend, and I was like, this is gonna work. And so when I watched Luke and Lorelai, I was like, that's gonna be me.
And like when I watched Gilmore Girls, like my parents got married really young and had me like before they were married. So I look at that and I'm like, it's my parents and I want my parents to be together. Like you're bringing your personal information into your ships.
Yeah.
And last one, I just remembered how the movies were kind of trying to push Harry and Hermione, and we were like, yes,
we're trying to do that.
Seven?
Yeah.
Was it time to talk about Ron Weasley?
Yeah, let's get into some of our favorite fandoms and some of the most popular fandoms, specific ships in there. So yeah, let's start with Harry Potter.
Okay, Ron Weasley is literally my boyfriend. When I picked up the Deathly Hallows for the first time, like got it at Barnes & Noble at midnight and whatever, and I just sort of like held it in like a prayer. I was like, if Ron and Hermione don't get together by the end of this book, I hate Harry Potter. And they did, so I love Harry Potter, and everything turned out the way I wanted it to. But I just like their whole progression of like, they bickered a lot and they were friends, but they, you know, there was always like something else there that neither of them could admit because they weren't, I think for each other what they pictured, if that makes sense. So, you know, Hermione probably assumed that she would be with someone a little more bookish, and Ron was probably like, I don't know, like a hottie. But they just came to realize that like what they had was undeniable, and I think that's just like the cutest thing. And it is fun to watch them progress from their childhood. Like Cassandra mentioned Boy Meets World, and my favorite line from that whole show is, "You've been dating since you were 2." Because that's like kind of how those relationships go when you get to see them progress from when they're literal children to like into their young adulthood. Bless you. And so I think that when looking at like kind of the major fandoms, which we're gonna kind of talk about, I'm always on board with the canon ships because those things have become so a part of my soul that I'm like, I'm 100% sold on Ron and Hermione. I'm 100% sold on Harry and Ginny, which I guess are the 2 major ones. And because it, you know, it's so important to me. So I just like, I trust and I follow those stories.
What about Neville and Luna?
I like them too, but they technically are not canon in the books.
Yes, they are. I say in tears.
Canon in our hearts.
Reading the book at 3 a.m.
Sorry. Anyone else have any Harry Potter ships?
Does anyone have any weird Harry Potter ships?
Yeah.
Hagrid and the
Madam
Yes, they're so cute.
They are.
actually are so cute.
Yeah, that one's more canon than Neville and Luna.
Yeah, they had good chemistry. Yeah, like Astrid and Anne.
Do you guys have weird Harry Potter ships or
Not weird. Weird is the
unconventional?
wrong word. There you go. Unconventional.
Yeah, shout them out if you do. Yeah.
Hermione and Draco.
Boo! Get out.
Controversial.
People really love that one.
Yeah, over there.
Harry and Draco is a good one.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that. I'm not mad at it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mine is Bailey Draco.
Oh,
Ooh, okay. Guys, Draco sucks.
Love Draco.
But would you date him?
Yeah. I'm a Slytherin also, so.
You are a Slytherin.
Yeah.
I'm patiently waiting for someone to bring up Wolfstar right now, and it's not happening. So I'll be the one.
I was letting you do it. That's Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, in case you're unaware.
Yeah.
Tolerant.
No evidence to the contrary. I've read the books looking for it.
Not when they're married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When they were little.
When they were,
yeah, when they were in
school, yeah.
And that's why Remus is so upset in the 6th book.
I was just gonna say, with this, something interesting I've noticed is that when it's a book, I tend to ship a lot more canon.
Yeah.
Whatever you put in front of me, I generally ship the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to TV shows, that's when I really go rogue. And even in the conventional fandoms, I find myself shipping things that I shouldn't be just because of the chemistry. And I don't know, I guess it just reads a little easier on books, or I'm not sure why, but I just think that's really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, film and TV shows have like added factors. Like it's not just written; it's also played by 2 different actors or several different actors in there, and so.
Especially on the CW, and they're all just like CW.
Yeah. Still true.
Ruins my life.
How about Marvel ships? Anyone have any favorite Marvel ships?
I love Wanda and Vision.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're really so cute. Gosh,
Precious.
Spider Black Cat.
Okay,
Ooh,
I'm
yeah.
here for that. I hear you.
I kind of ship Spidey with everyone, to be honest. Yeah.
He does too.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Mary Jane and Deadpool and like Tony Stark, like just throw them all out there. Come on. Give everyone to
He
Spider-Man.
has a swinger.
Yeah.
So sorry. I'm sorry. Huh?
Black Widow and Captain America.
Okay.
I was just
yeah, I
say
really
that.
like them.
Yes. Yeah, they're.
Okay, so speaking of Captain America, let me just tell you a little anecdote about how loud I screamed. They just ended this movie on a kiss at the end of Endgame because I was like in shock about it because that's, you know, what I complain about most. There was not enough kissing. And, so obviously, you know, Peggy and Steve getting their happy ending was like the best possible scenario. It was so cute. I sobbed. It was just touching.
but in the Winter Soldier, they have really good chemistry, Scarlett and
Okay,
Chris.
also,
They're best
talk about
friends.
Stucky for just like a brief second.
Yes.
Sebastian Stan, though, we talked about this prior to the panel, has chemistry with everyone.
He's very good looking.
Everyone he dates on a TV show, he ends up dating in real life, and I think that's just the inevitable.
Never dated.
So he's going to date Chris Evans, is what you're saying, eventually.
Almost definitely. You heard it here first.
Then we talked about Star Wars a little bit, but I'm also curious if who you guys ship like in the most recent episodes, movies, because I think that's been more controversial since.
That's my biggest problem, I think, is with the new trilogy, is that they've just been like, they all have really good chemistry, but the writers haven't been willing to like commit on any.
Yeah.
And so like I kind of, I don't like ship them all, but the thing is like I can't like be satisfied with any of it because there's never any moment where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the relationship. They all have like really good like things, but there's never any moment where I'm like, this is the thing, you know? Except for maybe Raylo, but.
Yeah, and The Force Awakens, I feel like they were pushing like Finn and Rey,
Yeah,
and
it's
I was like, they're cute, and she wasn't interested or something.
But then they never talked in Last Jedi.
Yeah,
So.
that's true.
Jedi, it's like every smoldering scene between the two of them. Okay, you're gonna get an Oscar, calm down.
Oh, and one last Marvel ship. I really like Star-Lord and Gamora.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they are really cute. That's true. Okay, so with canon shipping, when do you guys think it works and when does it not? We've talked a little bit about this, but do you veer more towards canon or non-canon ships?
Personally, I think if it's written well, then I'll ship it, you know? I think if the writers are doing their job well and everything's going fine, then I will like the relationship you're giving me, unless it's like genuinely toxic and unhealthy or something like that. But like 90% of the time I'll ship something that's canon, unless there's like two characters I really like, or like if the writing's bad, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's my main argument for Riverdale is like the writing is a disaster, so we just have to let the actors lead. And Bughead Forever, they're so I will give you
Here's my problem
my gift
is
sets of them just like making faces at each other, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I think it doesn't work when it's forced, and it doesn't work when it's fan service, and Riverdale, like, is the #1 fan service provider
I
these
feel like
days.
beyond
So
fan service,
gratuitous.
they're like actor service. So like
Yeah.
Camila and Charles started dating in real life, and on the show they were like, I guess they're dating now. Like,
But, like,
they don't know what to do.
A ton of gratuitous sex scenes for Varchi too, and I'm just like, give me something substantial. Like, I do want to see them kiss for sure, but I also want to see some substance there. So I think when it can get gratuitous or forced, or when it doesn't fit in the writing, or when it's clearly fan service. And I think there were some people in here who watched Girl Meets World with who is it, Lucas and Maya. Like, that was a big fan service problem, and they were on track with this one plot, and then they totally flipped it on its head because of fan service, and I just think you can't do that. And that goes back to Jane the Virgin too, which was problematic because Michael and Jane and Brett Deer and Gina Rodriguez had such amazing chemistry that they kept Michael around for so much longer than they intended to. But I respect, what's the showrunner's name? What's her name? Jenny Snyder Ehrman.
That's right,
I
yeah.
respect her so much for sticking to the story that she wanted to tell despite that chemistry. Because with me also, I'm a very loyal shipper, so I will latch onto something and I will not let go, whereas Amanda will get tossed and turned with the waves here. She shipped Barchi for a minute, let me tell you.
Yeah, she did. She cried.
I think Jane the Virgin is a really good example, and I actually thought of that too because I am a huge Jane and Michael fan.
Yeah.
Then but then they the show did a good job. They stuck to it, and I really switched to Jane and Raphael because I was like, you know, like this serves the story well, like this makes sense, and I loved
Brought Michael back from the,
yeah.
anyway.
I do think like with what Cee was saying, if they're like gonna convince me, I'm here for it, and that's why I changed my mind, because on The Magician specifically, they have coupled people that I was like, no, and then 2 episodes in, I'm like, I will die for them, because you know the actors commit and they create like a necessary storyline, and they are. I think the difference a lot of times too, it's like in my mind, if I'm watching a show about teenagers, whether the actors are 25 or 30, But if it's about teenagers, I'm like, they're all gonna date each other. They're all gonna like trade around, and that's just how it's gonna be. And so I never get like too latched on because I know that it's gonna break my heart. But if it's like more adults, like if we're talking Marvel stuff, I'm like, these are kind of like, you know, they've dated in the past, we assume, and now they're gonna like kind of find their person. And so that's when I'm like, this has to be Endgame, or I get really upset about it. And you know, with the magicians, going back to that again, they're in their 20s, they're in college, they're all kind of like, they're learning about themselves and stuff. So you kind of expect there to be like random pairings, but I don't know if anyone watches this show, but Josh and Margot are together in the current like iteration, and they make no sense at all. Like they should not be together, and they are so cute. So if you're like gonna convince me, then I'm gonna be here for it.
Yeah. Cassandra, how do you feel about it?
Canon is, I think it's good. I like it. I was just looking out here and thinking about Eleven and Mike and how, like, from the beginning, they were just like, okay, we're gonna get together, and then they were at the snowball, and it was so great. And then the first scene in season 3 was like, oh, they're making out. This is so great. So that was one that I really enjoyed and thought that they wrote well, and I think they have really good chemistry.
Oh, totally.
They're really cute.
Yeah.
They're Supin and Millie.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about non-canon shipping a little bit. What's the weirdest non-canon ship you've heard of? And like, also, how do you like feel about it? Like, what are some of your favorite non-canon ships, maybe? Since, Mary loves Barchi.
It's not canon yet. Season 4 is gonna be my season. Wait for it.
I don't think so.
I'm trying to think. I already said Viadero, Daniel and Emily on Revenge, if anyone watched Revenge, Zoe and George. Did anyone watch Heart of Dixie? George and Zoe, and Olivia and Jake on Scandal, Stefan and Elena on Vampire Diaries. I pretty much exclusively ship non-canon, so I could keep going.
I think I have like very few non-canon ships, but one that I feel very strongly about is Pink Lemonade from the new Power Rangers movie, which is the Pink Ranger and the Yellow Ranger, get it? And so in the movie, what they ended up doing is just like, they just kind of cut all of the like romance, so you can tell that they like were sort of leading to Kim being with Jason, who's the Red Ranger. I watched the Power Rangers a lot as a kid, so this was like a nostalgia trip for me.
Was?
And yeah, it still is. I love the Power Rangers. But what they ended up doing was, instead of having those moments like play into anything, they just like left the tension. And then she has incredible chemistry with Trini, who is the Yellow Ranger as well. And they just kind of like left the tension there too. And it's so much fun to watch because there's like all these like, well, that could go this way or this way. And you could put the puzzle in like 50 different ways. And they kind of just like left it there. And I've never been like satisfied by that before, but they did it so well that I was like, yeah, I'm into this. So now, like, in my headcanon, it's those two girls, and the boys just kind of like they don't factor in, which is fun. And I think that needs to
headcanon.
That needs to happen more often, I think, where it's just kind of like, what do you want it to be? This movie isn't about that, but we did it so well.
My personal favorite non-canon ship is probably from Pokemon, is Professor Oak and Ash's mom. He sends the child away to like go capture Pokemon from us, like, and he just leaves the mom there. I mean, come on, it's basically canon is what I'm saying. But I think that non-canon ships work really well when like you do have really strong characters that like kind of like that, where they just have a lot of good chemistry, or they can just really like the pieces can go in a lot of different ways. But I think that a lot of the times, especially now, the line starts getting blurred a lot between non-canon and canon, because there's just like so much like, fan theories and fan service and everything like that, where it's like, and I was thinking about this with like Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Is that canon?
It's like
Yes, like it is now, I guess, with Fantastic Beasts, but at the same time, it's like,
it's a gray area.
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
she said it can't, like she said it was, which
Let's not get into this because we won't talk about it.
What's canon and not in Harry Potter.
in order to like make a canon, it has to be like demonstrated and like obvious, which I feel like they just like refuse to go there, which is annoying.
Yeah. And I was thinking of back to Friends about Ross and Rachel. Rachel kind of has chemistry with whoever she's dating, and when they throw like Rachel and Joey together.
Why did
It's
they
like
do that? Do you like that?
I couldn't decide because
They are kind of cute when they're together.
I don't know. I didn't like it, but
They
I
were
latched
good
onto Ross and
roommates.
Rachel, so I didn't have tunnel vision.
I did
Rachel
latch
needs
onto
to take
them.
10 years and be alone.
Yeah, that's
she had a lot of
Learn about herself.
Yeah.
Cabin in the woods somewhere.
Are we
Yes.
seeing some of the strangest non-canon ships we've heard of?
Yeah, you can say, yeah,
Because
go
I
for
just
it.
Hiram and Archie. Did anyone see that was a ship? Archie, they called it.
I felt it when we were watching an episode last night. He always goes into his office and there's like a fire burning and they're like, so let's scheme together. I'm like, okay. I did want to talk about my, probably my greatest sore spot, which is Little Women. And there's a new movie coming out, and here's the thing, I love Amy March, and like, I love the way that the story is told. It's my favorite book. I respect the storytelling. So I feel like there has been a lot of conversation, and it always resurges whenever there's like an opportunity for anyone to talk about it, about Joe and Laurie. And like, oh, swoon, everyone is so sad that Joe and Laurie are not together, but that book is 200 years old. I think it's time that we say, respect the author. And it's hard for me to understand how you can say like, I'm such a huge fan of Little Women, but I don't like the way the story was told. I don't like the choices the characters made. I'm like, looking at that saying, what do you like about it then, you know? And so a lot of times with non-canon, that's kind of what it comes down to for me, is like, how do you say you love a thing if you don't love the thing as it exists?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
One more I thought of was Thor and Valkyrie had really good chemistry, and
Oh, yeah.
it was like, oh, are they, aren't they? And then now Love and Thunder, we'll see, I guess.
People were really shipping Valkyrie and Captain Marvel also.
Oh, that's
on Twitter,
right.
but
Brie Larson and Tessa
yeah, that's
Thompson.
it. They
They were like tweeting back and forth pictures.
I love that.
That's a good fun,
Really fun to
art.
see. Okay, so before we get to audience questions, one more question about actors who date, like off screen. So I want to hear your thoughts. Let's start with Amanda because I know she has thoughts.
I'm for it. For personal reasons, but also, for example, on Once Upon a Time, the actors who were playing Prince Charming and Snow White dated and then got married over the course of the show. And I felt like it was my mom and dad or my aunt and uncle or something that I like knew, because you know, you see them in your home every week, and then you find out that they're really in love, and their whole thing is like, we are in so much love that we've like saved the world with our baby, like Harry Potter. So I think that was so gratifying. And whenever I find out that actors meet at work and then like fall in actual love, I'm like, that's the best way to fall in love. I love it. It's so cute. I do think that it can become problematic and it can derail stuff, and shows can like go completely down when, especially they have younger actors. The OC is an example of that, and the Vampire Diaries too. When you have people who are kind of, you know, just figuring things out and whatever, but when it turns into a marriage, you can't deny that.
She literally left the show because they broke up.
Yeah, see, it can get totally problematic. And I think on Riverdale it is problematic too, because they just keep throwing the couples who are dating. So I just don't want the show to be driven by that, but then at the same time with Revenge, when Emily Van Camp and Josh Bowman were dating, like, I liked that because they weren't together on the show, but at least they were together in real life.
Oh yeah, that's like on Parenthood. Lauren Graham was dating Peter, whatever his name is.
But they played siblings on the show.
Yeah, that was
kind of weird.
That's weird. But yeah, I think it can get. I mean, I don't know how you can really avoid it though. But I just wish that it would be able to not affect. But like, it's impossible. Of course, it will affect the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real. Love is real.
Love is real. I'll go back to one more success story with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, even though that movie was a little questionable. They were great, and they met. Listen,
That's
Which movie are you referring to?
Green Light.
yeah. I mean, I always
I think I tried to block that out. So.
So does it affect the teenager and adult thing for you? I mean, when they're these like 16-year-olds dating each other and it gets all sorts of messy, but then when they're adults, like Lauren Graham and Peter Krause, and
like it's a little more stable.
later.
And to go back to Blake Lively, when they broke up on Gossip Girl, I don't feel like that it got bad. And I mean, they ended up getting married in the last season, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's an example where it didn't affect it.
For Gossip Girl, Dare. We've got a big Dare shipper over
They
here.
were canon for a second, and then I just ignore the rest of the show.
That was so weird.
Do we have any audience questions? We have a microphone here. You can raise your hand, whatever.
10 minutes. Thank you.
Close enough. Okay. So one of the things that's like started bothering me that I've noticed as I've watched some of the behind the scenes on DVDs and stuff is the younger teenagers, especially that they're, well, and like Stranger Things, Sadie, I can't remember her last name, that plays,
Sink.
yeah, that played Max. Like, she was just appalled that they made her kiss her
Yes.
co-star, and you know, even Eleven and Mike, like they seem like they're pretty good friends, so they seem like they're pretty okay with it. But at the same time, so I just wonder what you think about, you know, adults making these younger actors have these romantic relationships and act on them and all of that.
That's a good question.
It's super gross. You're talking about Beyond Stranger Things. I know you are, because I watched that and was like, uh-oh, I think I hate this show now. Because it was like the Duffer Brothers and the director's name, Sean, who they were like, ha ha ha, we made her kiss him a bunch of times. It was creepy.
It was like her first
And they
kiss,
should be
yeah.
like, they should really re-examine like who they are as people. We were talking about this, we were actually making this joke about Martin Scorsese and how he never works with kids, because no way. But Steven Spielberg like works with kids all the time. And so I think it's like, if there are people who are gonna make them feel comfortable and they're gonna feel safe in those environments. We have friends who are filmmakers in Australia, and in order to, they shot a short that was about this girl's first kiss. That was like the plot. And they had to sign a bunch of paperwork, they had to have parents on set, like it was really, really intense, just the fact that they had to kiss, and then they didn't even like allow them to kiss, they just had to like fake it. And so I think like there are protections in certain places that we maybe aren't aware of, and so those kids are like really child labor laws, and like for actors and stuff, like when you're in the union, they're very, very intense. And so I always just think like, okay, let's just assume that the system is working, because otherwise I will never sleep again. But I agree. I think sometimes it feels insidious to kind of say like, oh, and with the Stranger Things kids specifically, like, you know, people shipping them together or people shipping them with themselves. I'm like, those are children. And that's really, really, really hard, because they are fantastic and incredible actors, and they're putting them in these kind of adult situations where you kind of forget that they are so young. So yeah, I do think it's incredibly problematic and can be like gross, but I trust the system. I just have to. And then hopefully just, I don't know, whenever I'm making a film, for example, like take care of the kids on my set.
You just got to be so careful with that, because like, and the same thing is you do want to see like, not like you want to be able to have those stories be portrayed in like a respectful way, because like, you know, seeing those relationships and like Stranger Things like that, can you imagine like how like that's got to be so fun, especially for people that age, you know? And so it's just, you got to like figure out, it's so tricky to make that like work for the people who are that age, but then not like try to discourage the creeps from coming along. So it's just the balance, I think, yeah.
And I think the internet has kind of become a monster for that. Just they're way more accessible, and they're like, oh my gosh, what are they doing all the time? Like, Rihanna's saying something about Finn Wolfhard, and he's like, I'm 15, that's not okay. But like with Boy Meets World, there was no internet, so I feel like maybe they were a little more protected, so it's kind of a bummer that...
Well, that's why Boy Meets World was good and Girl Meets World was a disaster, because of the internet.
There you go.
Anyway.
Firsthand.
Let's all get off the internet.
Good.
I was just wondering, what are your guys' favorite queer ships?
Oh my gosh,
I'm gonna rep my shirt right here, Kilo and Gone from Hunter x Hunter. I freaking love them so much. Yeah, that's what I would say personally.
Oh, I need to think about
I already said Quentin and Elliot. I also love David and Patrick on Schitt's Creek. If anybody watches that show, they're the absolute cutest in the world.
Oh, they're so cute.
I feel like Timon and Pumbaa is a good one.
I'm not following it.
They have the best relationship.
Kevin and Joaquin, Rip.
Yeah, they were so cute.
Oh, they were cute.
It's hard to say one that hasn't like gone up in flames.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned a couple already, like Wolfstar and Pink Lemonade. Guys, go watch the Power Rangers movie. It's so good.
I think personally though, a lot of the queer ships that I tend to gravitate towards are a lot of the more non-canon ones, just because I feel like there's just not a ton of representation in that area, and that's kind of just the nature of the beast as it has been. So yeah, I kind of have to, look around. But then at the same time, I kind of like I don't like it, but at the same time, I get more invested in the fandom that way when there's a lot of non-canon ships, because then I can really talk to people about their favorite ships that are non-canon, and so it's like. It's a double-edged sword, I think, and I really would love to see more queer representation, especially like a lot less queer baiting, just a lot more committing to relationships and a lot less of just we're going to make them look at each other for a shot, And do you have a question?
Oh my god, yeah, we're talking about it. I'm gonna be that girl.
Okay.
Season 4 was gonna be your season. Season 15, Supernatural.
Oh my gosh! We're gonna keep
This is the last one. All I need, just hold hands. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like the fandom has, I know you're talking about fan service, and it can be problematic, but it seems like the fandom has decided this is happening, and they're like, we're not making this for you.
Yeah.
There's other people watching this. There's not.
There's really not.
True. That's so true. Like, I think there should be like a bet. I know, it's the internet.
You think they should do fan service at a point?
Okay, Supernatural is like
Beast
a different,
episode.
it's a different genre.
We're gonna talk about this after.
I can't go to the Supernatural panel today, so now we're talking about
All
it.
right, let's do this. So we initially were like, oh, we could talk about Supernatural, but there's like really not any, like they're all non-canon, they're all slash, they're all
All the women, that's
they're all cracked.
They do kill all the women.
Because they kill every woman on that show. And
Ruby!
I've watched many seasons. I got to, anyway, that's not relevant. I love that show. But I stopped loving it because eventually I realized like these people don't know their audience. And their audience is women. I know a couple guys who watch it, but generally it's ladies who are kind of here for like, oh, they're hot, but also like we want to, we like monsters and stuff too. There's multifaceted reasons, but also like we are the primary audience, we ladies, and for some reason they never have had like a true strong female character that hasn't just been fridged. They have never had like a good ship. They've never given those boys like a solid anything in their whole existence, which I think is like a mistake. And I think that they stopped evolving the characters. They stopped like letting things happen. And so, yes, I agree with you. At this point, they need to say like, who is our audience and what do they want?
Yeah.
They want this to happen, and so just like let it happen.
Between that and fan service,
I was just
always
gonna
know
say
your
that.
audience.
It's disappointing.
You can respect your audience and still not be just like completely fan servicing it, because I think audiences don't always get enough credit. Like with the internet, it's been cool for fandom at the same time because people can come together and like be more analytical with things. Like people really love these things, and I think that should be respected sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's true.
And last note on Supernatural, why did they kill Charlie just to bring her back?
What? Okay.
Different panel. We'll talk.
Next year.
Okay, I think one more question.
We only have 2, so let's just do
Oh, okay.
Let's do both fast.
Sorry.
So there's the will they, won't they, the which one will they choose sort of tension that's the writer's job to create and maintain for a certain extent of time, right? And then at one point, they actually give the reader or the watcher some resolution. And I think that Scully and Mulder was one of the first that really took that to its zenith. But then once you give the resolution to the fan base, then how do you keep up the tension in the relationship, and how do you make it not fall apart like that, like Vampire Diaries?
If you've ever been in a relationship, you know that it's like not TV worthy. So I do think that is difficult because it's like, what are they gonna like fight over the dishes? But what happens sometimes is like on the MIDI project, they got together and then they like made him into a monster, and it was so disheartening, and they just like changed the character too far to try to keep that tension up. So I think what works really well is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They've been together for many seasons. They were dating, they're married, and they're just like cute and funny. And so I think like what keeps them interesting is that they are humans with a life outside of their relationship. And as much as I love kissing, like I want to see that these people are individuals outside of like just the romance, and that's the key. If you haven't built a good character who has motivation and has a life outside of just like who they're coupled with, that's not going to be interesting.
Agree.
That's one thing I think Stranger Things has done really well, because like we had Nancy and
Jonathan?
Huh? Yeah, Nancy and Jonathan ended up breaking up, but her character was so strong throughout the season, especially I think with her arc of the newspaper arc, the news and everything like that, that I think it worked really well that they ended up breaking up and it wasn't like a disaster. And the same with season 2 when they got together, I think, because she is just such a great character and all of them are. And so that's, I think, what it comes down to is if you have good characters as opposed to just good relationships.
True. Good point.
All right.
Last question.
Do you think that there are like any like bad ship dynamics that like shouldn't really work or something like that?
Toxic. Yes, like toxic, abusive relationships. That's why I don't like Chuck and Blair on Gossip Girl, because he is abusive and crazy. And they play it off as like, oh, he's so passionate about her. And kind of with LOVE on Veronica Mars. Like, he's crazy and like unhinged. He hurts people. And they're kind of like, oh, he's so passionate, that's hot. And I think that is really problematic, and it goes back to like Byronic hero tropes going all the way back to Mr. Darcy, who I don't like, because it's unhealthy. Like, you shouldn't romanticize abuse.
Yeah, so like all you people out there who ship Joker and Harley Quinn, I would please ask you to stop because that's an abusive relationship.
I'm scared. Ended that on a deep note. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
I like people to kiss.
Now everyone kiss.
Thank you everyone so much for coming. We are going to be at a panel later today at 4 p.m. About indie comics for women, so if you want to come to that, we'd love to see you there. Yes. And then if you want to see our rom-com, it's called Better With You. It's coming out on September 19th. And we are actually having a free screening at Brewery Cinema Pub in Salt Lake City. We have flyers here, so if you would like to come get one. It'll be very fun, and we'd love to see you there. And you can find us online at Apple Juice Pro on Instagram and Twitter. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.